Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming and for, listening to what I have to say. I think I've got a good grasp of what you all do, but if I start to change topics and I haven't answered something, please feel free to jump in and ask a question, because I very much want this to be a practical stuff. Like, you should be able to walk out of this and having learned something that you can put into practice immediately, not a theoretical, because I find theoretical stuff goes away. We're all business owners, and we're busy doing stuff. I do like to start off with a quick bio of myself. And the reason is because I've been to enough events where someone will just get up and start talking. And the question is always, how do I know this person actually knows what they're talking about? So in a nutshell, since 2002, I've made my career mostly as an editor for television. And most of that has been unscripted and documentary stuff. So it's largely been people who aren't professional actors on camera, and I put it together so it looks and sounds good. And then about 10 years ago, I started producing, and the entire time I was doing corporate work in there. And about 4 years ago, I started to really focus on the corporate stuff because, to be perfectly honest, content that goes online is far more interesting than content that goes on broadcast television. What you can do with it is way more interesting for a variety of reasons. And I won't get into it today, but I will say that people aren't using video correctly online. They're treating it like it's just a place to put a TV show. And video online is capable of doing so much more. And to that end, then, let me talk about how you can use video for your business. Give me a second here, and I'm just going to share my screen. So here's effectively what I'm going to talk about: video marketing. What the heck is it? For small business owners like us, I'm going to presume we're all people who run businesses of like under 50 people. Let me actually start with, I changed the name of my company about 4 years ago. I had a very clever name to make me stand out in the TV industry because there's a million production companies. When I started focusing on corporate stuff, it became Peter Kelly Media, because without me, there is no business. And that's kind of like the heart of what I'm going to talk about today. If you're like me, you are your business. Without you, it doesn't exist. So we need to start putting a face to that business. And then obviously I'll go into how small business can utilize it. And then I'll go through some actual tips when you're using Zoom or you're filming a promo with your webcam or your cell phone, how to actually do it so you look and sound good. Even if you aren't in a position to hire anybody. Trust me, anybody can do this. So with that in mind, so here is, I promise I'm not going to load this with stats, but I like to start with this one because this is a study that was done in January of 2020. And it's worth noting, professional marketer, these are, on one hand, it's obvious, but it's worth saying. These are people who are paid to sell other people's goods and services. So they only use tools that make them money. And video has, since I'm going to say 2010, become the go-to medium. It has the biggest ROI of all the tools, and it consistently is growing. I mean, we're at a point now where it says 99% say they're going to continue using video. Nobody who's using video stops using it because they see the benefit of it. Now, having said that, I do appreciate that I'm effectively telling a bunch of people who run their own business that you should be making videos. And I'm telling you, you need to do more work. And I hate it when people tell me to do more work. But this hopefully will show you that it's worth the extra bit of work. And I'm going to try to make it as easy as possible for you. Does that all make sense? All right. Why is it effective? The second line here, if you've heard me talk at all, or you saw the promo I made for this, I repeat this line ad nauseum. people like to buy into a business before they buy from a business. That's the culture in which we live in, right? I don't know if you're like me, but I mean, it used to be, you know, you'd always hear about people boycotting. You know, I don't like what that company's doing, so you stop buying. And now there's a shift to, oh, I do like what this company's doing, and I'm going to support them. So video is the way to put a face to your business. It very much is. If you're going to take the time and energy to let people know what your company does, what products and what services you offer, you should also let people know what you're about. And the reason for that is then you draw in people that are about the same things. And I think we all know that when you align with a client, work is enjoyable. When you don't, when you're working with somebody that you just don't agree with on several factors, it tends to make jobs more miserable. So video also has this great habit of weeding out people. You know, there's lots of people who see my videos and tell me they like them. I'm positive that there are people who see my videos and decide, I don't like this guy. There's something about me that rubs me the wrong way. Thankfully, I'm at a point now, nobody's actually told me that, but the upside of that is those people don't waste my time. And you only have so much time in the day. And then how are businesses using video? I know this, again, is really obvious to most people, but it's worth going over. So social media, we're talking Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. I don't know anybody offhand that's using TikTok for business, but I'm sure there are people. And again, this is where you have reach. This is where you can get out. It's worth noting, I treated social media like it was fun. It was where I would go and talk about comic books or, you know, things that weren't business related. And I realized I was misusing social media. It's a place to network. And the beauty of a video is you can make a video and have it go on social media and network with people while you're busy doing work. One of the downsides of networking is you often, you know, you're at an event or more likely you're at a Zoom call, but when you're doing this sort of thing, you're not doing the job that you've set out to do. So it's this, you know, I want to say it's a necessary evil, but I really enjoy networking. So the point of video on social media, though, is that you can then reach people that you wouldn't normally reach, or you're better using your time. Because, you know, while I'm sleeping tonight, my LinkedIn video could be seen by somebody who's going to become a potential client. Websites, you should have, obviously everyone at this point should have a website. If you have one, you should have at least 2 videos on it. One on your landing page and one on your About Me page. The About Me page is where you just get to talk about you. It's like, why are you doing what you're doing, and a little bit about who you are. And the beauty there is someone gets to see you, right? It's I think 90% of human communication is nonverbal. So if you write a wall of text, you know, someone can read it, but they don't get a feel for what you're like. Or if you're sarcastic, you know, sarcasm doesn't come across in text. Where a video, you get the mannerisms, you get to see the person, you get to hear the inflection in their voice. It goes a long way to build a connection. And it's that first point of contact. You know, sales is 7 to 13 points of contact before the average person makes a sale. So video kind of cuts that down, or at least gives you the first or second point of contact is running in the background. Landing pages is actually worth noting. There's been several studies done about the effectiveness on video on landing pages, and they range from, I say, 20% to 80% more effective with a video. I'm conservative with my numbers. I think the 80% was an extreme case with an Australian land developer. But what every study basically says is if you have a landing page for your website, your product, your service, and it's text and images, if you take the exact same website and add a video to it, it will convert more people. And again, the low end of that is 20%. SEO, I mean, Afan can probably speak to this far better than I can. Do people understand what SEO is? Search engine optimization? This is not my expertise, but I do understand how video affects it. And I'm very big on knowing how my job affects the next person. And the upside of SEO, there's really two. If you have it on your website, people stay longer. 3 minutes of text can be skimmed in a few seconds. 3 minutes of video needs to be watched in 3 minutes. And the longer somebody stays on your website, the higher Google will rank it, or at least determine that it is something that people are staying at. I'm saying the short version of that is if you go into a search engine, type in, red shoes, and you go to a website that's not about red shoes and you leave immediately, Google knows that. Google knows, okay, and it basically tracks anybody who's looking for red shoes who goes to this website isn't finding what they like, so we're not going to recommend it to as many people. And having a video on your website then keeps people there longer. Obviously, you want it to be relevant to whatever they're searching, and the better quality video you have, the more someone's going to stay. But just inherently having a video can help. The other thing worth noting is if you have video content, you should be putting it on YouTube. And I don't think YouTube is the be all and end all, but YouTube is the second largest search engine behind Google, and it's owned by Google. So again, it helps with the SEO because Google likes to recommend people go to other Google websites. And sales funnel, I think I touched on that where, media or videos are the first point of contact. Is this all making sense? Am I talking crazy talk? So the reason I go through all of this is because there's many times where I've been taught how to do something, but not why to do it. And without the why, I never get around to doing it. And again, like I said, I do appreciate I'm telling you to do more work, but hopefully I'll tell you how to do it quickly and easily. And trust me, the first time you make a video, if you haven't made one already, it might take a bit. There is a bit of a learning curve, but it's not a steep one. And after you've made one or two, you'll figure out how to do them faster and faster. And it should get to the point where if you're making a video yourself with your cell phone and it's a 2-minute video, it should take you 2.5 to 3 minutes to do it. Even from the point of conception, if you think about a video, there is a way to have a system in place that you then, make the video within the next minute and have it up online 5 minutes later. So I think that's everything I can convince you. If you haven't been convinced to use video, I'm not going to do that in this call. So I might as well just get to practical stuff. Does that make sense?
Sounds great.
All right. So you know what? I'm actually going to stop the screen share here because it's about making a connection with people. And if you're looking at a slide, you're not looking at me, we're not talking. And that kind of defeats the whole point. Give me one moment here. Sorry. Okay. So, everything from this point on, most of the stuff will apply to a Zoom call. So please try not to be self-conscious if I say something that I recommend something and you're not doing it. Because I know some people suddenly get very uncomfortable being on camera because I'll tell them, don't do this, and they're in the middle of doing that. I think we all understand that people are at home right now, and we weren't intending to. So it's not like you all have studio space set up. We're all just making the best of the situation. Now, having said that, something you can do that is the single most important thing for a Zoom call and the single most important thing for a video, and that's audio. And I feel weird saying that because my entire career is built around video. But people will put up with really bad visuals for far longer than they will put up with bad audio. So if you ever have to choose between looking good and sounding good, always, always, always pick sounding good. If you're operating on a Zoom call, test the audio. There's a little thing in the corner where the mute button is, that at the very bottom, audio settings, you can go into there. Before every single Zoom call, I go into that and I hit record and I say testing 1 2 3, testing 1 2 3, and I listen and have it play back. And there's two reasons for that. One, sometimes a ghost gets in the machine and something changed, even though you could swear you didn't change a single setting. Things will change, and the last thing you want to do is hop on a Zoom call and not be able to be heard. Or trust me on this, if you film a couple of videos, I've once spent 20 minutes filming like 5 or 6 videos, then found out there was a problem with my audio. So I had to scrap it and start again. And you make that mistake once. That's one of those, never again. So always test your audio. The other thing worth noting, when I'm talking now, I'm hearing my voice, and my voice is coming, through my body or out of my mouth. What you guys are hearing right now is going through a microphone, and for me, through a mixing board, and then to my computer, and then to you. So I don't hear what you hear. And if I don't do the test, then I don't know if there's a problem somewhere in between the microphone and the computer. And I think we've all been on a Zoom call where somebody's typing or somebody's tapping right by their microphone, and it's really annoying. Odds are they don't realize how loud that noise is. So again, you all came here to hear somebody talk about video, but I'm stressing the audio is the far more important thing. All right, so what do I have next? Okay, visuals obviously are the next big thing. Clothing and your background, I kind of treat these as the same things. You want to look professional, and what that is different for everybody. For me, when I'm working in the edit suite, I'm in jeans and a t-shirt 90% of the time. When I'm meeting with a client or if I'm on set shooting, I'm in dress shirt and slacks. So when I'm making a video or I'm doing a Zoom call, I want to look the way I would look when I meet a client. Mechanics can get away with, dirty overalls. That's totally appropriate. So it just comes down to make sure the space you're in, so the background behind you and the clothes you're wearing are something you would be comfortable if a client was in that space with you. So part of me says that, again, that's obvious, but I know one of my friends is a paralegal, and when COVID first hit, one of her lawyers showed up for virtual court in a jogging suit, and the judge gave him quite the talking to. So just look professional. In terms of your personal appearance, I would say, take a brush and run it through your hair and run it through your teeth, preferably a different brush, but do that check. You don't have to be made up, and you don't have to be dressed up. But, I will literally turn on Zoom and do the, check the teeth. Because again, you don't want to have a big black mark because it's something stuck between your teeth. As terrible as it is, it becomes the focal point. And you don't want anybody focused on something like that you want them focused on you and what you're saying. Backgrounds, and here's where I appreciate not everybody has control over this. But there's some things you want flies on heads. Yeah, that's one of those unfortunate situations where I'm not going to defend the man, but that was unfair to him because the vice presidential debate, a fly landed on his head, and look, that's what everybody talked about. Okay, enough of that. The point's been proven. Thank you, Denny. So background. You want a background, again, that looks professional. You want some texture, but not anything that's distracting. So for me, I've got a very calculated thing. I actually shoot in my space. So I'm very fortunate. So I actually have a prop here, this camera. So people visually, it's even like a subconscious thing that people see the camera in the background. They associate me with video. And then these are fake plants, so I don't have to water them. But it's something interesting but not so interesting that people are going to be staring at it while I'm talking. And do your best to kind of emulate that. Bookshelves are a pretty good neutral thing that most people have access to. I've done a couple of job interviews in the past where this wasn't an appropriate background, or I wasn't at home, so I just found a bookshelf. And again, bookshelves, they've got color, they've got texture, but they're not distracting. You want to avoid blank walls. Blank walls, I used to say that they leave the viewer with an ominous feeling, and I think that's too strong a word. But there's something uncomfortable about watching somebody that's in front of a blank wall. And my theory is that in all of human evolution, we never saw another human being with a solid color behind them. There was always trees and whatever there was in the background. So you want to have something there, just to give reference point. Avoid doors and hallways if you can, because, there's, 9 of us on the call now. If each one of us had one person walk by in the hallway in the background, that's 9 distractions in one call. And you can't control that. Windows are the same way. Obviously, somebody can walk by. You also don't have control over the lighting. If you have a window directly behind you, 1 or 2 things can happen. One, the lighting is so bright that you are then in darkness, which defeats the whole purpose. The whole point of making a video for your business or having a Zoom call is to get to know people, or people to get to know you. And if they can't see you, it's no good. The other thing is clouds will go in front of the sun and change the lighting temperature. And one of my favorite people in the world, she's got windows on one side of her office, and they're not on camera. But while I'm chatting with her, and maybe it's just I'm sensitive to it as a video guy, it'll be blue, and then it'll slowly turn orange and then it'll be blue again when a cloud comes back. And I find it very distracting as the color temperature changes. So if you can, avoid windows. Okay, now this is the heart of the matter. The camera itself, whether you have a smartphone or a webcam or whatever, it doesn't matter the quality of the video. Like my webcam right now is like from 2001. I think it looks terrible, but it's functional for a point of a Zoom call. My videos that I post on like LinkedIn, I actually shoot with my smartphone. I don't use any of my cameras. I find my smartphone is actually higher quality than the other cameras that I own. And I just use that. And there's some things you can do with that aren't equipment related. It's not the quality of the equipment, it's how you use it. So the first thing is eye level. You want to, especially for a Zoom call, have the camera at eye level so that the person on the other end subconsciously sees you as an equal. If you have the camera pointed low and up, like this, we got several things happening here. One, my ceiling is in the shot, and I see this constantly. And it's nobody walks into a room with their head pointed up 45 degrees, right? So what you're trying to do with these promos is simulate talking to an actual person. Does this all make sense? Am I talking crazy when I say like, are you guys, sorry, y'all laughing. So I'm like, are you guys walking in? There's something in Ottawa. Y'all walk in with a 45-degree angle. So it's, again, it's about viewing yourself or getting yourself seen as an equal and treating people like an equal. If you give me a second here, go a bit into film theory. Let's say you film and I'm at a low angle. Let's ignore the background for a second. So right now my camera is low and it's pointing up. So I'm in a dominant position. This makes me look powerful. This is the way a monster in a horror movie is filmed, right? So I'm more threatening being filmed this way. If you do the reverse, if I were to point it down, then I would be the victim and I'm in a weak point. And you don't want to go into a business meeting playing power dynamics. Next time you're watching a movie, especially like a superhero movie, pay attention. At the beginning of the film, they will film the hero. They'll set the camera up at eye level and then raise it a bit and point it down. So he or she is a little bit weak. And the villain will be pointed, it'll just be subtle. It'll be eye level, and then they lower it a bit and point it up. So they're dominant. So it makes the villain more powerful at the beginning of the film. And then at the end of the film, they'll change that. So the hero has overcome this big menace, and he is now shot in a weaker position, and the hero is slightly more powerful. And again, it's a subconscious thing that filmmakers use that you should be aware of, because it's a subconscious thing when you're doing a promo, right? And you want to be the likable person, or at least appear to be the likable person. Basics in terms of framing. In a feature film, they will spend days plotting out the framing of an image. There's sketches made, like it's thought out crazy. And if you want it, we can get into there's a rule of thirds where everything has to happen in the center third or the side third. And for the purposes of what you guys are doing, pop yourself in the center of the frame, have the same amount of space on this side as you do on this side, and have a little bit of space above your head. That looks decent. And here, let me do this. If you're framing yourself like this, again, it's not natural. And here's my rule of thumb. If there's enough room here for a word balloon or a thought balloon, like in a comic strip, you've got too much room above your head. So just frame yourself like that. Now, the other thing that I'm still working on this one because it's very unnatural, but when you're talking, talk at the lens. When you're in a Zoom call, the tendency is to look at somebody, because we're human beings. We're looking for people nodding. We're looking for the smile. We're looking for people if they're bored. You can read the room. When you're talking to a lens, there's no feedback. It's unforgiving. And this is probably where most people stumble. And I know I had severe problems with this. If you're going to have a trouble, it's going to be here. All I can say is if you do it a couple of times, it gets a lot easier. It sometimes the first or second time you do it, it feels like it's a really steep learning curve. It's not. This is one of those, it's a skill you get by doing, so just do it. And if you're like me and you're in the middle of a Zoom call and you realize that I've been looking at Bernie the last 3 minutes, just then look at the lens. You don't have to make a big deal out about it. Just, look at the lens. And again, this is emulating human contact. So right now, it should look like I'm making eye contact with each of you. Whereas if now I'm looking at Margaret Ann, I'm looking a little off camera. And nobody talks like this. If you were in a bar chatting with a friend and your friend was constantly looking just off to the side, you'd be like, what is going on? So in a Zoom call, my advice is look at the camera when you're talking, look at the screen when you're listening, because then at least you get some human feedback. When you're filming a promo, just look at the lens. Talk to your viewer. It helps a lot of people if they visualize somebody. And I'm not talking like a hypothetical. Like, who was your last client? Gary? Think of Gary and talk to him, right? And then just imagine Gary's there. Imagine Gary's nodding. Imagine everything about Gary and speak to that person specifically. When you're talking about, what you're saying, the segue here is talking about stuff specific. I can't really give you guys advice to that, because what you're going to talk about in any of your promos or any of your videos is specific to you and your business. Does that make sense? So I can't really tell you, here is like the golden rule for talking to an audience, because that's something I do work with clients, but it's a matter of sitting down, figuring out who you're talking to and how do they receive a message. That said, the most common thing that people do wrong when they're constructing their script, even if they don't write it down, they try to sound smart. And people who try to sound smart tend to use words that they don't use in everyday language. And the upshot of that is that you end up coming off as disingenuous because you're saying words that don't feel natural coming out of your mouth. I would never say, who absconded the Chesterfield? I would say, who stole my couch? So when you're doing a promo, use the words that you use day to day. You know, I might put an expletive in the middle of that one if someone's actually stolen my couch. But it's all about replicating actual interactions with human beings. So be yourself. And I know that's one of those untangible things, right? Like, it's, what does be myself look like? The tangible I can give you there is use words that you use. If you're the type of person that likes to script things out, and I used to sit down and I would script out what I was going to say. That's fine, but try not to read it. And please, please, please don't memorize it. The problem with writing a script and memorizing it is that when you get on camera, what you're doing is remembering. And again, that's not natural. And what ends up happening is your eyes go up like this. And you don't realize it. Here, let me take my glass off. Like you'll do this. If you watch my videos, I do a lot of stuff where I have my structure, and I'll have the points that I want to cover. And sometimes I'll be like, what was the next point? And you can see the moment in my videos when I'm trying to remember my next point. And that's fine, because that's, again, a way a human being behaves. But if you've written a 2-minute script and you're doing this the entire time, it doesn't work. If you do write one, read it out loud at least once. I had a client who was a writer, and we were actually making 10 1-minute promos for his book. It was a self-published book, and he wanted to put stuff on social media and then on his website. And he wrote these, I'm going to say, eloquent little promos. And I emailed him ahead of time and I said, before we shoot, please practice these out loud. And he assured me he would. And then he showed up and we started filming, and he had not. And the words that he had written that read so beautifully on the page were combinations that his mouth could not say. And that is very common. Has anyone here actually ever watched the show 30 Rock, the Tina Fey sitcom? One of the reoccurring jokes in that show, that there was an actress who got cast in a movie called The Rural Juror, which on the poster looked really good. But the joke throughout the episode, and then the series even, was nobody could say it. It was always the rural juror. And it's amazing how word combinations will trip people up. And that's one of those universal ones. But there are word combinations that you won't be able to say that I would have no problem with, and ones that I cannot get to come out of my mouth that other people can say without a second thought. So if you're going to script something, read it out loud. My preferred way of doing that, if you are going to write something, know the first thing you're going to say and know the last thing you're going to say, and have bullet points for the meat of the video. So that way it's like, you know how to start it, and then you know your first talking point is, and you're not spending your time remembering what you wrote. You just know that, okay, I'm going to talk about shoes, and I'm going to first talk about the quality of heels and the effect they have on women. And then I'm going to talk about the dye that goes into red shoes. And it would just be like heels, dye. And if you need to, write that down and post it beside your phone or your webcam, so you have a reference point and you just know. And that way you've got something to talk about, and you're not beholden to what you wrote, because what you wrote even 10 minutes ago was what made sense 10 minutes ago. and you want to be in the moment. And the word combinations or sentence structure that made sense 10 minutes ago might not make sense in a moment. The other thing too is if you really screw up and you're not comfortable with your thing and you have to do a second take, you're not trying to recapture exactly what you just said, because then we go back into the remembering mode. You just want to be in the moment. And I'm actually a big fan for, if you guys haven't done videos yet, keep your videos to 2 points. Intro, whatever your first sentence is, your first point, you know, if you have to, talk a paragraph's worth about your first point, your second point, and then your end. And when you end, it should be your call to action. Do you want people, what do you want someone to do after they watch your video? And you should know that before you start your video. And I think the stat was 46% of people who watch a video online will take an action after watching it. I obviously that's going to depend on what action. If you're selling a house, you're not going to get 46% of your viewers buying houses. But if your call to action is sign up for my email newsletter, or it's go to my website, or, you know, check out the link, whatever it is you want them to do, know what that call to action is. Say that at the end, and then stop talking. Videos have this tendency when people make a video, they're looking for some sort of goodbye, right? You're filming, you're like, so, you know, please check out my website. Thank you. It was great talking to you all. Like, you're looking for this feedback that's not going to come. So accept that it's not going to come. Say your call to action and stop talking. Every single word you say after your call to action waters down your call to action. So, and the whole point of these videos is to connect with an audience and get them to do something. And I think that's probably where I'm going to stop.